In a quiet neighborhood just outside Chicago lived a young man named Zane Calloway. The kind of neighborhood where lawns were trimmed on Saturdays and dreams were often measured by promotions, paychecks, and polite applause. Zane grew up there, in a small blue house at the end of Maple Street, always feeling like he stood half a step behind everyone else. In school, Zane was good, but never the best. When the teacher needed someone to lead the science fair team, she chose Marcus Reed, the confident kid with the booming laugh. Zane was asked to help out. When the basketball coach needed a captain, he chose Tyler Benson. Zane made the team, but warmed the bench. Second choice. It became a quiet pattern in his life. In high school, Zane developed a love for writing. Words made sense to him. While others shouted to be heard, he learned to carve his voice into sentences. He entered competitions, and came second. He applied for scholarships, shortlisted, but not selected. At graduation, he clapped for others walking on stage for awards he had secretly hoped for. Second choice. But what hurt the most wasn't losing, it was being almost enough. Almost talented enough. Almost confident enough. Almost memorable enough. Zane carried that almost like a shadow. After college, he landed a junior marketing job at a startup in downtown Chicago. The office buzzed with ambition. Ideas flew across conference tables like paper airplanes. Zane worked hard, stayed late, refined presentations, corrected mistakes before anyone noticed. When the manager role opened up, he applied. The promotion went to someone else. "Zane, you're incredibly reliable," his boss said gently. "But we need someone more dynamic." Dynamic. It felt like another way of saying, "Not you." He congratulated the new manager. He smiled. He went back to his desk and finished his tasks with the same quiet precision. But that night, sitting alone in his apartment, something shifted. For years, Zane had waited for someone to finally choose him. A teacher. A coach. A boss. A crowd. He had been waiting to be validated. And he was tired. Tired of shaping himself into what he thought others wanted. Tired of shrinking so someone else could shine. Tired of being the dependable backup plan. That night, staring at the city lights flickering outside his window, Zane asked himself a question he had never dared to ask before: what if I stopped waiting to be chosen? The idea felt rebellious. Dangerous. But freeing. The next morning, instead of pouring all his creative energy into company projects that barely carried his name, Zane started something of his own. A small blog. Nothing flashy. Just a space where he wrote about quiet resilience, overlooked potential, and the silent battles people fight. He wrote about being second choice. He wrote about feeling invisible. He wrote about the strength it takes to keep showing up when no one is clapping. At first, hardly anyone read it. 10 views. Then 20. Then 100. One evening, he received an email from a reader. "Your words made me feel seen," it said. "I've always been the second option in my family and my job. Thank you for reminding me I still matter." Zane read the message 3 times. For the first time in his life, he wasn't competing for someone's approval. He was connecting. Weeks turned into months. His writing sharpened. His audience grew slowly but steadily. He posted consistently, even when the numbers stalled. Even when doubt whispered, "You're not special." Because this time, he wasn't writing to be first. He was writing because it was his. At work, things remained the same, until they didn't. The startup faced a crisis. A major client pulled out unexpectedly, and the company's reputation wavered. The marketing team scrambled to craft a campaign that could rebuild trust. Ideas were thrown around frantically. Nothing stuck. Then Zane spoke up. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just clearly. He suggested a campaign centered on transparency and real stories from employees and customers, highlighting struggles, lessons, and growth instead of polished perfection. "It's risky," someone said. "It's honest," Zane replied. There was something different in his voice that day. Not desperation. Not a plea to be noticed. Conviction. The team hesitated, but with limited options, they agreed to try his approach. Zane led the project quietly but firmly. He interviewed staff, crafted narratives, and built a strategy rooted in authenticity. His late nights no longer felt like attempts to prove himself. They felt purposeful. When the campaign launched, the response was overwhelming. Customers appreciated the honesty. Engagement soared. The lost client reconsidered. New partnerships emerged. For the first time in a company-wide meeting, Zane's name echoed through the conference room, not as support staff, not as reliable, but as the mind behind the turnaround. His boss called him into the office a week later. "We misjudged you," she admitted. "You don't demand attention, but when you speak, people listen. We'd like you to step into the senior strategist role." It wasn't just a promotion. It was acknowledgement. But what surprised Zane most was his reaction. Years ago, this moment would have felt like winning a long, exhausting race. Now, it felt steady, because somewhere along the way, he had already chosen himself. The blog continued to grow. His words traveled far beyond Chicago. Messages poured in from students, employees, parents, people who felt like background characters in their own stories. One message stood out: "I've spent my whole life trying to be first," it read. "But your writing made me realize I just need to be true." Zane realized something powerful. Being second choice had shaped him. It taught him humility. It taught him observation. It taught him empathy. While others chased spotlights, he had learned to see the people standing in the shadows. And those were the people who needed a voice the most. Months later, he was invited to speak at a local leadership conference. Standing backstage, hearing the hum of the crowd, the old doubts tried to resurface. "You're not charismatic enough. You're not impressive enough. You're still second best." He took a deep breath. Then he remembered the emails. The campaign. The quiet nights when he kept writing even when no one noticed. He walked onto the stage. The lights were bright, but they didn't intimidate him. He didn't try to be louder than anyone else. He didn't try to be someone he wasn't. He told the truth. He spoke about being overlooked, about the pain of almost, about the freedom that comes when you stop begging for validation and start building your own table. The audience was silent. Then, slowly, they stood. A standing ovation. Not because he had been the loudest. Not because he had chased attention. But because he had been real. That night, walking home under the cool Chicago sky, Zane realized something that would have changed his younger self completely: being second choice was never a verdict. It was preparation. Preparation to understand rejection without bitterness. Preparation to succeed without arrogance. Preparation to lead without forgetting what it feels like to be unseen. He had spent years believing he was behind. In truth, he was being built. And when the moment came, when opportunity finally knocked, he wasn't scrambling to prove himself. He was ready. Zane Calloway was no longer the backup plan. No longer the almost. No longer the quiet maybe. He was first. Not because the world suddenly changed its mind, but because he did. And sometimes, the most powerful victory isn't being chosen by everyone else. It's choosing yourself, again and again, until the world has no choice but to notice.